I reckon we're just 1 minute past 5, so I reckon we can get started, and I can see that number of participants keeps climbing. I'm sure people will continue to join us over the next sort of 5-10 minutes as we just go through a couple of slides to start with before we get cracking into the code. So yeah, first off, welcome everybody, welcome back everybody who's joining us from later this week, from earlier in the week, should I say, and welcome to all new faces. It's actually super lovely to see so many of you joining us, not only on such a hot day, but also on a Friday at 5. I know this is often the time that people start the weekend, so you're choosing to kick it off with us. We think, no, that's gone off. There could be no better place for you to be at 5 o'clock on a Friday, but we might be biased. But no, I'm personally really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a really, really fantastic end to the week. So just a quick reminder of what is going on. So we've had a great week with Edward and Nathan, who have been taking us through a bunch of coding stuff. We had HTML and CSS on Monday. We had JavaScript on Tuesday. We did tic-tac-toe on Wednesday. We had an open day yesterday, hearing from some of our current and former students. And today is the big one, Project 2 Space Invaders. It'll be really exciting to go through this one today. If you have missed any of the classes, they're all up on our YouTube channel, so you're able to log in and view them on there. I think I've seen a question already, which is around how long they're going to stay on the YouTube channel. We haven't set a time limit. We're not planning to take them down anytime soon, so feel free to look back over those over the coming days and weeks, because we're planning to dig them up there. So yeah, plan for today's Space Invaders, bringing together all of the stuff that we've learned this week, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and putting it into a really fun online game, which will be hopefully really, really nice thing to be able to show off to your friends and family. Just a quick recap of the useful advice and things to know. As we said, lessons are being recorded. This one's being recorded too. What that means is you're going to be able to watch them back at your own pace. What that does mean is if this does move a little bit fast at some point, if you do find yourself a little bit lost, we will try have moments where we catch everybody up, but in general there's a lot to get through in a short space of time. So if you do find that you've kind of fallen behind at some point, don't worry too much. A lot of this is about demonstrating all the cool things you can do with these technologies, and on our full-time courses we have much more time to go into this in detail. So if you kind of fall behind, feel free to sit back, enjoy the rest of the session, and know that you can watch this back and catch things up at a later date. Secondly, the certificate. I know there's been lots of questions about this. Let's just kind of get this out of the way at the very start. We will be sharing a form around halfway through the lesson, and then again at the end of the lesson. If you complete this form, then it'll register your attendance for today. And we'll be sending out certificates ASAP over the weekend. So you've all had the forms from previously in the week. You'll get the form for today. It's valid for 24 hours, the link for the form. So you can do it up to about 5 o'clock tomorrow. And that's how it works for the attendance. You didn't need to attend the open day yesterday for your attendance. So yeah, hopefully that answers all the questions about the attendance for now. As we said, get interactive, feel free to code along. If you've been enjoying doing that with the tic-tac-toe session, etc., then please do, and jump into the chat, ask questions. It was lovely to see you commenting on each other's questions too. That was super fun on Wednesday, so looking forward to some more of that. And then finally, of course, if you're hungry for more, as we said, there is our full-time courses are starting in September. So we've got a software development and front-end development on the 5th. And we've got a part-time data analytics starting on the 19th. And we do have that 15% discount for people if you apply by Tuesday. So yeah, hopefully we'll see lots of applications coming in for that too. I'm going to stop here for now, and I'm going to jump back on at the end of the session. But for now, let me hand over to Ed to take it away.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Again, I'm super excited to have all of you to myself, all 460 of you for this afternoon session. We're going to build Space Invaders. A couple of things here. The Q&A function here on Zoom, please use it if you want. You can ask questions. You can look through the answered questions. If you see if anyone's already asked the question that you want, upvote them, comment on each other's questions. It will help because there's only one of me, only one of Nathan, only one of Patrick. And Nathan sadly has to leave us halfway through today's session. So we'll give him a lovely send-off as well halfway through. Nathan's been a fantastic teacher during Coding Week, but also clearly on our course as well. So if you do come study here at Boolean, you might be able to take advantage of Nathan as one of your teachers. No guarantees. But yes, so let's get cracking, shall we? Cool. I'm going to share my screen and we can begin. Okay, so what are you looking at the moment? I'm going to send this link to everyone in a second. This is what we're going to build, Space Invaders. So what it's going to look like apart from all this stuff down here. I'm going to send this link to everyone so you can go find it. I'm going to send this into the Zoom chat. I will tell you why this is going to be useful to you. So open up the Zoom chat, you'll be able to see a link that I've shared. This is all of the stages that we're going to build, all 10 stages, step by step, we're going to build the game. Each step has a link to the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And from the second stage, the outline, you'll be able to compare the difference between the stage before and where you're at. So you can click on these links to say, okay, what was the difference between the start and the outline stage? This is the link called diff. You can go here and see what we added from before. So this is all just the additional code here on the right-hand side. Or you can just use the HTML link or the CSS link and the JavaScript link to see all the individual files at that point in time. All right. So these will be like your companion guides as we go through. If you want to check where we're at, please use this link to go find them. Or if you forget where the link, or you join and leave the Zoom chat and come back and the chat's no longer there for you, just ping a question and we'll be able to link to it there as well. All right. This will be useful to you as we go through this. Cool. So I'm going to start off at this stage here, the 0 start stage. I'm going to open up my editor, and this is where we're going to begin. For those of you who've already joined us for a couple sessions, you know that if you want to follow along, you can use Code Sandbox or whatever local environment you have set up for development. If you're using Code Sandbox, again, the way to get to a Code Sandbox, which is a cloud-based, a web-based editor, all you need to do is go to Code Sandbox. So just type into your URL bar on the top of your browser, codesandbox.io, and go directly to the Create Sandbox link, and go to Create Sandbox in the middle of your page here, and start off with this static template. Once you're here, then you can create some files to replicate the structure that you see from these 3 files here, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you can get yourself set up, create a file, call it index.html. If there isn't one, call your JavaScript index.js and call your style sheet main.css, and copy across the file contents into it, so you can get ready to go. So I'm going to give everyone about 30 seconds to do that if you want to. Create your Code Sandbox if you're following along in Code Sandbox, or if you are setting up your local environment, just copy the contents of these files and get ready to start. This is what we're going to build, and then we're going to start off from this empty page here. It's a nice blue page, and we're going to start off here. It's absolutely empty, no JavaScript yet, and a very small HTML page. Some basic styles to begin. Another 15, 20 seconds, and then we will get started. Just looking through some of the questions here. Ashmit says, which files will you download from the Space Invaders site? If you go to the finished version here that I sent in the chat, start off in the first stage here, and you get the links to the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. And all you need to do, click on the link. Clearly, there's no index.js, there's no JavaScript, we haven't written any, so just create an empty file there. For your CSS, just copy across these 9 lines of code, create a file in your code sandbox, call it the same thing, copy it across, and the same with your HTML. All right, so you should have something in order to begin that looks like this on the left-hand side: index.html, index.js, main.css. When we get there, I'll send across the images as well. Cool. Okay. So let's start with the first stage outline. What are we going to do here? Well, the first thing to do is to think about how this app is going to work. I've got my HTML page here for me to look at, and I'm going to take this element here. We've seen how we do this in tic-tac-toe, where we're going to query the page for this element, and then we're going to update it by creating new elements and putting into it. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and insert our app using JavaScript into this element. So in order to actually get there, we're going to just query the page for it and make it a little bit bigger so you can probably see it a little bit more easily. About that. And we're going to say something like, I'm going to grab the app element from the page using query selector. And choose the class selector like this. And I am going to set up the game. So I'm going to write some function at some point to say, please set up the game. And I'm going to set up the game where in my app element. Let me add some comments here so we can see what this represents. So I'm going to query the page for the place to insert my game. And then I'm going to do all the things, technical phrase, do all the things needed to draw the game. The grid, the board, the spaceship, everything, get ready, the aliens. And then we're going to start everything. So then I'm going to play the game. So start being able to move the ship and move the aliens. All right, we're going to go down row by row when we get there. So I'm going to have some kind of function that does this. So this is like how the application is going to run. I'm going to find the element in my HTML where I want to insert it. I'm going to set it all up, and then I'm going to start it. All right, which means I need to write these 2 functions: set up game and play. All right, I'm not necessarily going to fill them out fully, but in general, they're going to look something like this. I'm going to have a function called setup game. We need to tell it where we're going to insert something. And we're going to do some things here. This is going to be all the things we need to draw the game. So I'll put this comment here as well. And then I'm also going to have some kind of play function. Something like this. What do I need to do in my setup game function? There's a few things I need to do. All things need to draw the game, like draw the grid. We're going to draw the spaceship. We are going to draw the aliens. Can't type. We're going to probably add the instructions and the score area, the score thing. Right, and then we do something that looks like this here, up here. So I think that's probably the kinds of things that we need to do to get started. So far, this is usually where we begin whenever you're trying to break like a big problem down into its sub problems. We start at the end thinking about how it's going to work, and then we're going to start to fill in the pieces. We're going to go to like outside in. So let's have a look at how we're going to do this first step, really, drawing the grid. This is going to be the first thing that we're going to sort of have a look at. At some point, we need to replicate this structure here. If I hover over this grid here, you can see in the finished version, I've constructed this grid that has a lot of boxes within the area of the page. And all that's going to represent either some kind of alien moving or a spaceship moving. So I've got to find some way to create this grid. And the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to write a function that's responsible for drawing the grid. I'm going to create an element on the page that has a certain width. I'm going to make sure that element, which is a whole grid, has some child elements, has a number of boxes of a certain width and height that constitute each little cell. And then I'm going to put it all in a layout to make sure they go left to right and down the page in that sort of like grid format. So the first thing to do here is to call a function to draw the grid. So something like draw grid. And I'm going to slowly fill these out, set up games and call a bunch of other functions to do everything for me. So if I call draw grid, I've got to some point define it. Let's define it. Const draw grid. What's this going to do? This is going to do something like loop create a lot of cells. Specifically, how big are we going to do this? We're going to do a 15 by 15 grid. If each of the cells is going to be 40 by 40 in terms of pixels, that's going to be a total width of 600. So we can create a lot of cells. That's what, 225 cells. We also need to create the containing element. Create the containing element. And then we have to just append the cells to the element and the element to the app. All right, this one here. Add this in here, containing element and the containing element to the app. That's the last thing that we do. In terms of the last thing that we do, I'm going to do something like draw game. I'm going to take this element. I'm going to store this element. So right at the very top here, when I query the page, I'm going to store this so I can use it later. So I'm going to have a little state store up top here as an object. I think this is very similar to how we were using some game state in tic-tac-toe. We had a little object to handle that for us. And we'll just have an element property that will start off. We can just we'll add it dynamically. So we'll leave it like this for the moment. And I'm just going to add it here. State element we'll just store it here. So whatever I get passed in through this function setup game, I'm going to store as a property on my state object, which means that I can extract it from here. So at the end of my draw grid, I'm going to append to the element the grid. All right, so that should show up the page at some point, right? I'm always thinking from the outside in. What's the thing? What is this function going to do? Its purpose is to create the grid, but then add it to the page. So let's do the create the containing element then. Let's create a div. Let's do const div is going to be a document create element for the div. Let's then make sure we're able to target it because we need to use some CSS to make sure that this is going to be the grid area. So we're going to do something like, let's call this actually something better, like a grid. Grid class list. Let's add a class name to this. Add grid. It's probably the easiest one. If I'm adding the class list here, let's add a style down here for targeting any grid. When I target this grid, I'm going to give it a width. Let's say it started at 600 pixels, 15 by 40, 600. I know that I want this to be a grid layout. And if I give it width, I think I also need to give it some border as well, this little white border here. Let's give it some border. Border is going to be white, solid, and 2 pixels. We'll have a look at that in a second. 600 pixels, white. We're going to put it into a grid format. Let's see what happens when I load the page, right? So we'll keep this one actually over here. This is the finished version we'll have a look at. I'm going to refresh the page, and I see this little, this little whiteboard at the top here. Let's expand this so we can see what's going on here. So I've added the grid to the page. You can see I've added the class, added the div inside the app. So far, so good. But at the moment, because I've only given it width, it has no height. It doesn't contain any elements. I've given it no fixed height. I could try and see what it looks like if I add some height. It's probably not super needed if I add it with some fixed width and height elements soon. Let's have a look. All right, so we can give it some height there, and we can see this box. Now you can see on the right hand side of my screen, I've got a width and height set at 600 pixels. Let's go ahead and add it with a bunch of child elements. So I need to do something 225 times. Where am I going to store this number? Let's store it up here in state. Let's say for the moment, the number of cells that I need is going to be, how we were working this out, let's say currently it's 600 divided by 15. That's the width of each, that's the number of cells. I could also do 40. Let's do it that way. That's the width of each cell I want in terms of pixels. This is the total width of the grid, width of each cell. That's going to be 15 by 15, so the same thing. So it's going to be a square. I could just write 225, but just giving you an understanding of how we're getting to that number. 600 pixels, total width of the grid. Each cell is going to be 40 pixels, which means that if I divide 600 by 40, I get 15. And so the total cells is 15 squared. So let's loop through and create a for loop to execute some code 225 times. Let's set up a loop here that goes up until the number of cells. And what are we going to do in this loop? We're going to create a cell, append the cell to the grid. Let's do that first. Const cell is document create element, another div, sure. And then let's append the cell to the grid. Grid, append, cell. Save. Let's go ahead and load the page. So you can see I've got loads of divs now, just empty elements. Look at that, boom. All the way down the page. Okay, so I have added 225 elements, but I now need to make them appear in the right layout. How am I going to do that? Well, let's add some CSS to target each one of those child elements and give it some fixed width and height. Let's say something like take all the grid element and all the div children, sure. And I'm going to give each one width is 40 pixels and height is 40 pixels. Refresh the page. And now we can see, if you hover over it, you can see that each one takes up now a certain fixed width and height, all the way down the page. Yeah, it's not yet appearing in the right layout, but I've constructed each cell with a fixed width and height. I now need to lay them out within the grid. And so my display grid here, we need to add some lines here to say exactly how to form this grid. And I'm going to ask CSS grid to essentially do this a little bit more dynamically for me. So we'll use grid template columns. We'll say, please do something a number of times. How many? Until we fit everything into the grid of 600 pixels. Auto fit. How many times? As many times as it takes to fill up that row. And it's going to be exactly 40 pixels, please. In conjunction, we're going to use grid auto rows to say, if you need to generate more rows, please do so with exactly a height of 40 pixels. So now I have all of my nice, ooh, close, but no cigar, almost there. I've constructed my grid. You can see they're all laying out nicely across in different columns and rows. But if I get to the end of a row, something sneaky is happening. Right there, can you see? I was like, there's some empty space here on the right-hand side. And then rather than add it to the right-hand side here, it goes directly to the row before. So I can scroll down to the bottom, I have some of my cells outside of my grid, and that's just not okay. So what's happening here is I've told it to be 600 pixels, but because I've set border sizing to be including of the border box, this width is reduced the content area slightly to take into account the 2 pixels of the border. And we can see that from over here. If I click on the grid here, you can see rather than be exactly 600, I've lost 4 pixels, 2 on each side because of the border. So I'm just going to increase the width and height here. I could probably do it the other way around. I'd probably just be like, sorry, no, let's revert to the normal type. And now we have exactly the right number of cells in each row. So you can do it this way, revert to the normal way that the browser likes to organize element content width, or you can just make sure that the content is exactly in the right by using an extra 2 pixels on each side. Okay, so we've got the grid, so we can start putting some content out on the grid. One thing that we're going to have to do is store each cell somewhere, because I want to be able to access it later. So we're going to have to throw that into some game state as well. So let's add cells here as an empty array to start off with. And we're going to append the cell to the grid, and we're going to store the cell in game state. So we'll do something like state cells push cell. So as we build up the grid, we're also building up JavaScript source of truth for the cells of the game. So then we can be able to access and manipulate the cells as we want to, and then ask the browser to redraw as we need. I might stop here for some questions.
Yep, I have a couple, Ed.
Sweet.
So the first one, I think you can probably guess that this was going to be the first one. Can you briefly touch on this function syntax for us?
Ooh, yeah, of course. Function syntax. So the way that I'm writing functions at the moment is using arrow functions. Alternatively, what this would look like if we were just using the function keyword would be to use function keyword and do something like that. That's the only difference. There's actually some more differences, but in general, they are quite interchangeable. And one of the main differences is how they handle the value of this as a part of the execution context. Let's not worry about that. There's a couple other differences, like the way that JavaScript will separate out the difference between a declaration of a function and a function expression. But in most cases, writing functions in the arrow syntax is becoming more common. It's slightly more concise to write and a little bit more readable.
Amazing, thank you. Where are your semicolons? I didn't have any either when I did my session.
Where are my semicolons?
Yeah.
Thankfully, they are in the bin somewhere.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, the way that we write JavaScript here at Boolean is with the idea of trying to make it as easy and accessible as possible. And that means trying to find a set of style rules that is forgiving and prioritizing learning rather than any barrier because of style. So for that reason, we don't care about, not just we don't care about, we don't use semicolons, and it's not It's not something that the JavaScript interpreter needs to separate out statements. It uses new line characters very, very well. If you want to have everything on one line, yes, you will need semicolons to be able to show the interpreter where a certain expression ends. But otherwise, you don't need them. Clearly, like in here, we're using these semicolons to show where the expression ends. So that's clearly important.
Amazing, thank you. One more.
Yep.
Would you be able to repeat how removing the border sizing automatically fills the 600 by 600 grid?
Yes, good question. So we had a situation where I had 600 pixels of width and height, and my grid is, as you can see on the bottom left of my screen, I'm pointing over here, like you can see me. You can see if you look at the little white pop-up on my page here that says div.grid, you can see, yeah, it's 600 by 600, but this is currently including the border. And that means that the content area is slightly reduced. And so if you look on the right-hand side of my screen, in total it's 600, right? 596 plus 2 plus 2 is 600. So when you use border sizing a border box, it takes into account everything up to the border, which sometimes is exactly what you need and usually easier to reason about, all right? You're thinking about the total width of your element that goes up to the end of the border, rather up to the end of the content, and then you also have to like do some mental math to say, okay, I've also got some border. So in general, we prefer by default to use this rule for all your web pages. But we're running into a problem here that I only want the content, especially when we're trying to fill content out within the grid, that I need to adjust the width to make sure the content still remains at 600. So I'm adding that manually here. Hopefully that was helpful.
Amazingly so. Thank you, Ed.
Happy to keep going?
I think so.
Cool. Okay. Next step is let's draw the ship. So I've got all my cells. I need to draw the ship. How am I going to draw the ship? Let's go back to my setup game function. So this is always when we're going to start off thinking about what needs to happen. Remember that we're going to grab the element from the page, set the game up into that element, and then start it. So in my setup game will be where I think about first. Okay, this function runs first, so I'm going to go to here. What happens? Okay, I'm making sure I can store the element in state. I'm drawing the grid. Now I'm going to draw the spaceship. Draw the spaceship. What happens here? All right, let's write a function. And after here, after draw grid, that makes no sense. Const draw ship is a function that does something. What does it do? It's going to find the bottom row, middle cell, if there is one, and then add an image. We use a background image, add a background image. Excuse me, that's all we're going to do. I think that's all we can do. That's all we need to do. We need to have the position of the image of the ship. So what is find the current position? I guess that's part of this. So what I mean to say here is we're going to find it from game state. What does that mean? Well, I need to be able to track where my ship is at all times. And so we're going to use this little object up here to keep track of all the values my game needs to do its work. So I'm going to add another little value here to say this is my ship position. And I need to give it a value. What's the value going to be? Well, in a 15 by 15 grid, the bottom row, if we get to 225, the last 15, we'll get to 224 because 0 to 224 is what, 210 to 224. So what's halfway between 210 and 224? 217, something like this. That's going to be the bottom row. If you think about 0 to 14, 15 to 29, and keep going, the bottom row is going to be 217, or the middle of the bottom row is going to be 217. So we'll start off here. So I'm going to then find from my cells that constitute the grid, the position of my ship position. All right, this will be, please find element number 217, right? In order, it goes through, finds 217, and let's add an image to this class, to this cell. Class list, add spaceship, which means I need to down here have a class for spaceship. Spaceship. What's this going to do? This is going to have some kind of background image, which is a URL link, which goes to a local address, which is in images and something like spaceship. I will pause there because I need to probably find a way to show you where these images are. Background image, URL images, spaceship. Draw ship. Let's see how that works. Oh, I don't see anything. Draw spaceship. What did I call it? 13, line 13. Draw spaceship. I don't call it spaceship, just draw ship. That's easier. Draw ship. Cool. Okay, background image. I probably need a few more properties on my each cell. I need to say something like, hold on, let's go find it. There we are, down here, right at the very bottom you are. Let's go zoom down my way. I can see this is here. Ah, look at that. The size is 192 pixels, 192 by 192. So it's probably huge. We probably don't even see it. So if I add here something like background, ooh, why am I in capitals? Background image, no, background size, background image, background size. I can't remember what the property is. Background size, I think it's background size. If I give it a value of contain, please fit within the boundaries of this element. Let's see what happens. You don't like background size. Why do you not like background size? Width and height. We have no quotes around it. There you are. So I've added background size contain, and you can see it shows up on my grid. I've got a nice little spaceship. Totally inoperable. Move the keys, nothing's happening. It's just fixed. It's just where it is. And if you wanted to be sneaky, you'd be like, actually, I'm going to start all the way up at 117. Boom, you can start there. Be like, have a little advantage spaceship against the aliens. I'm not sure if that's actually an advantage. Anyway, we're going to start at the bottom row, 217. Spaceship. So I've got this image. I want to be able to share these images with you. Probably the easiest place to get them is here. If you go to the finished version that we've been linking you to, open up the sources tab in your developer tools, find the one that has images. And you have a couple images here that you should be able to take. You can just right click, copy link address, or save it locally into your editor. You should have alien, you should have explosion, projection on spaceship. These 4 images are what you need. And if they don't pop up straight away, just play the game a little bit and make sure that the sources are loaded as you need them. And you should be able to find them here. So then just right click, you open up a new tab, you can save it, and you should have access to all the images this way, all right? Save it locally into an images folder, and then you can source them directly like this. Right, so all those images you should be able to get them quite straightforward. Again, just open up your developer tools console on the right-hand side, navigate to the sources tab, find the folder. If they're all expanded, click through and find the one that says images, and then you should be able to copy and save them locally. Cool. Okay, so we've added the spaceship. What is next? We want to be able to move the spaceship. Have I missed anything else out at the moment? No, I think we can keep going. Maybe I'll pause the end of the next one, all right? For any questions. Okay, so how are we going to move the ship? Well, moving the ship is going to be part of the play, right? Yeah, actually getting things started. So in my play function, this is where I want to, excuse me, set up the ship controls. So for this, we're going to set up an event listener to listen to some events that can detect key presses. So we're going to do something like window add event listener to the key down event, and we're going to say, please use the function control ship to figure out what needs to happen. All right, this function is not a function call, it's just simply a reference to the function, which we'll define right here. We'll do it here. Const control ship is a function that takes in the event and then does something. We'll do a little bit of const log here to see what's happening. So I've just added a couple lines here. Window, add event listener, key down, listening to any key presses. And when that happens, I'm going to say, please execute my control ship function. In an event listener function, any functions you pass as callbacks take as their first argument the event itself. All right, so make sure you're able to add that argument here, and whenever we use it, it will be representing the event itself. So we're going to log it out to the console to see exactly what's happening. I'm going to go back to my version, please. Refresh the page, go to my console. And I'm going to start pressing keyboard events. And you can see in my console, I'm starting to get some log statements. I go left, go right, go up, go down, and you can see that I'm getting some information here about exactly what's happening. And I press spacebar, I press all the different letters, and you can see that I'm getting some log statements. And this is from this event here. So when my event listener here on the key down executes control ship, the first argument to the function is the event. So we have access to seeing, looking at what event just happened and then deciding what to do. And the information here that we're going to use is on either the key or the code. All right, both are absolutely fine to use. Usually the code is slightly better. It's got a little bit more unique information. You can use either the key or the code. I'm going to use the code. So we're going to do something like if the key pressed is left, do something. If right, do something. If space, do something, right? Those are the kinds of things that we're going to do. So if, let's write this out, actually codify it now. If the event code is arrow left, that's looking at this up here. We're going to do something. Grab this, I'm going to do that one more time. Else if, double F. The event code is arrow right. Do something else. Else if the event code is space. All right, those are the three different options that we're going to do. Let's move those comments above where they are meant to be. Cool. How are we doing for time? 5:45. I think we're fine. If the key presses left, if it's right, if it's space. What are we going to do? So if it's left, we're going to move ship left. I'm going to write another function for this. This is basically just the controller. Where am I putting that? Over here. Move right and fire. We're not going to do that one just yet. We're just going to do the movements at the moment, all right? So this is going to require its own function. Const move ship is a function that takes in a direction. and then does some work for me. What's it going to do? Well, here we need to then calculate exactly how to move it left and right. What do we need to do? If I go back to my grid, if I move it left, I need to remove the image from this cell and add it to the one next to it, and vice versa, it's going right. So we're going to remove an image and add an image. Remove image from current position, do some stuff, add image to new position. Yeah. And in between, we've got to figure out the delta, right? The difference from the current position to the next. So let's do that. Where are we currently? Well, we're always storing in state the ship position. So we'll do something like find it from the cells. So get me the element that currently has the ship, state.ship position. This is the element that has the ship. We'll remove class list, remove the spaceship. That gets rid of the background image. We're actually going to add it at the end. Add. And then we have to actually do the change. So then here we have another if condition. If direction is left, do something. Else, if direction is right, do something. What are we going to do? Well, we just need to take the ship position and move it left or right. Ship position, decrease by 1 and increase by 1. Something like that. Let's see what happens. Refresh the page. I can go left. I can go right. Yay. All right, but something happens if I go too far left. Attacking. I'm going to attack the attack the aliens. If I go right, what happens? So now we start breaking my program. Abort. So I need to add a few more conditions here. If it's left, but also if it's not, don't actually continue to move it left. If we're at the edge here. So we can add a condition here to say something like, guess there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could hard code the actual value here because it's only on one line, or we can try and find the multiples of 15 and state ship position. If it's a multiple of 15, right? 0, 15. If it's a multiple of 15 and has no remainder, then actually don't. Yeah. Let's see if that works. Yeah. Okay. I can't go any more left, but I can still go right and breaks my program. So let's add this condition here as well. But it's not going to be at 15. The remainder on the 0 to 14, if you divide by 15, the remainder is going to be 14, right? So if it's not 14. Okay, so we've got a ship that can move left and right, but it can't go outside the grid accordingly. Okay, I'm going to pause here for questions.
We have someone asking about the projectile image.
Yeah.
Is that an image or is that a style that's being used?
Okay. The projectile is an image. You can see it's an image. If we go to here, the projectile. So it's being stored as a PNG file. Is that the question, Nathan?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I'll send a link out for that as well to anybody that asks the question.
Cool.
Thanks, Ed.
No worries.
Let's have a look. So there are a few people feeling a little bit lost. So that's totally normal. Maybe we can just reiterate the intentions for this session.
Exactly. absolutely okay to feel we're moving quickly because we're trying to make sure we get this done in the 2 hours that we have. Remember, you'll have the recording, you'll have all the code, you'll be able to rebuild this from scratch, and you'll be able to see as I narrate it and as I do it in your own time. You'll be able to slow, you'll be able to pause, go half the speed, double the speed, all these lovely things. So after you have the recording, please take it, please watch it back and rebuild it as you want. All right.
Fantastic. Somebody is asking what the double ampersand means in the if statements.
Nice. This is a way to be able to essentially say and like this, if both these things are true. This is saying if the direction is equal to left as a string. This is saying is the remainder when we divide by 15, is that not equal to 0? If these two things are true, then we can execute this line of code. It's basically just a big and.
Fantastic. I think that's about it for questions right now.
Cool. Cool. Okay, so we have the ability to move the ship. Let's go through the next stage. The next stage is stage 5, fire. Okay, so we can move our ship. We're going to now do the fire function here. So we're going to uncomment this, which means we now have to write the function. Yay. Const fire is going to be a function that does something. What does it do? We're going to use an interval. An interval is a way to be able to run some code repeatedly after each time after a specified time. Right, every 1 second, every fifth of a second, we run a bit of code. So this is going to help us run a bit of code to be able to move the laser around as like a background image until it gets to the edge of the border or hits an alien, for example. So we're going to use an interval to be able to do this for us. In order to do this, we need to do something like set a variable for the interval. We're then going to assign this variable the value of calling set interval. This is the JavaScript function inbuilt standard library JavaScript that does the work for us, creating this interval, the ability to have a function that repeats, executes after a certain minimum time frame. How does it work? Well, it takes this bit of code, a function, and as a second argument, the time frame of which to be able to repeat. So we're going to start off, let's say, at 200 milliseconds. Right, please execute this function up here every 200 milliseconds. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to do a few things here. First, I need to, like I did with moving the ship, we're going to remove the laser image. Where does it start? Laser projectile, what do we want to call it? I call it laser. Laser starts at the ship position. We're going to then remove it. We're going to increase, or rather decrease, because we move up a row, the laser position, and then add the image again. All right, like we're doing here. Remove it, move the image, do some calculation, then add it. We'll do the same thing here. Remove the laser, decrease the position, and then add the laser again. But we need to make sure before we add it, we check we are still in bounds of the grid. Those are things that we're going to do. So let's start off with the laser position. I'm going to put that over here. Laser position is going to be starting off at the state.ship position. We'll start off here. First thing we're going to do is remove the laser image. State cells, grab the element from the array, currently at the laser position. Get the class name and remove it. Remove the, what do I call it? We haven't done anything yet. We're going to remove it called laser. We'll add something very similar to this in just a second. We'll remove it, and then we're going to add it. So I'm going to add the image at the bottom, something like this. We're going to take that laser position and move it up. Laser position. We're going to move it up by a row. Every row's got 15, right? So we just update it by 15. If we decrease 15, it moves up. So you say 0 to 14 is the first row, 15. 15 minus 15 is 0. So it always stays in the right column if we subtract 15 from the laser position. I'm going to make sure that we're still in bounds. If laser position is less than 0, we're just going to stop. But we also need to clear the interval. So if I set the interval, I need to clear it, stop the interval. So we need to use clear interval. So in order to stop that function, because after we set it, we need to stop it manually, we use clear interval after a set interval, which is why I have declared a variable up here, so I have access to it at some point to say, now stop it once this condition is met. Right, we don't want the laser to go outside this grid, and it always starts from the grid at 0. So if it goes less than 0, we know it's outside the grid. What else do I need to do? We need to add the laser. So laser over here, background image is a URL with images, laser PNG. That's probably enough code to write before running my program. Interval, set the position, create the interval, remove the laser first of all, move it up a row, check we're in bounds, add the laser image, and repeat. Okay, let's see what's broken. Oh, I can't find the. Oh, it's not called laser. What do I call it? It's called projectile. Projectile. Oh, I've got a little laser, and I can. It's going very slowly, so I'm going to speed it up. Let's go 100. So every 10th of a second. Is that really every 10th of a second? That's better. I need to reload the page. All right, so I've got an ability to fire some lasers. Look at that, boom. Fire laser. I think that part is done in terms of firing the laser. Nathan, let's do one more round of questions before you've got to sadly leave us for the afternoon.
Absolutely. One I've got right here.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason you're using a semicolon after let interval, but nowhere else?
Oh, no need.
There we go. Super simple.
Thank you for being eagle-eyed. Why do I do that? Why do I do that?
So I do the same thing when I'm declaring a variable but not giving it a value, just because it seems like there should be something there.
That's so interesting. You do that as well.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm just like, I need to. It's like I can't just leave it hanging out like that. I need to be like, stop. It's entirely unnecessary. Yeah.
Some deep thing inside of me that's scared that the next line of code is going to somehow interact with that line that says let something.
Oh, that's a really nice pick up, by the way. Whoever asked that question, I like that. Yeah.
When writing code, do we have to comment as much as you are?
Oh, great question. So look, when you're learning to code, I really recommend it. I highly recommend it. It helps you crystallize your thinking process, draw out some of that nebulous sort of areas where you're not really sure what to do. It helps you focus on what exactly is the purpose of the function. And I still do it even to this day, but maybe not quite as line by line like you're doing now. But for people that are following and reading, sometimes you don't need to actually worry about the code that I'm writing, but the English that's making a little bit more sense. It helps give you some context. So I highly recommend it. Clearly in production, when you're actually writing a team, remove all your comments before you actually submit your work. But when you're doing your development, it's a really great tool. Like I keep pen and paper at hand all the time when I'm writing, so I can think about it, process what I need to think about, dump any information onto the page, but I don't keep it in my head. It's expensive to keep things in your head, and then write code. The code should be self-documenting anyway. So after you've written your comments, your code should be able to be read and understood.
Nice.
Good question.
Very nice answer as well. We have a few people interested. I've seen this question a few times over the week. May we use this game and the tic-tac-toe one as part of our future portfolio?
You can do whatever you want. This is entirely free for you to grab and choose and decide how you want to play with it. Clearly, source it, right? So if you're borrowing it, pretty much as is, just source it and say that this is, done during a code long or workshop session at Boolean. If you augment it, change it, it then becomes your own work. All right. So basically, I don't mind.
Nice. I think that's it for questions, Ed.
Awesome. Well, folks, before we continue, just want to give a huge shout out to Nathan, because I think he's got to rush off somewhere. First of all, thank you for the sessions you ran this week. Thank you for the questions that you're being able to moderate, both on the first day and this first part of the session. A huge thank you. And I hope everyone joins me in saying thank you to you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. I feel honored. I'm glad I could help. And good luck with the rest of the session, and have an amazing weekend, everyone.
Awesome. See you, Nathan.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Okay, so Patrick, you're up.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But if you can help, maybe in the next couple of stages when I get there, I'll ask some questions. Right? Just shoot me any questions, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's keep going. We've got about an hour, so we should be able to get done about 45 minutes. At some point, my little puppy here, she's not that little anymore, but she'll probably get a little bit hungry. So if we can get done by 7 o'clock, I can give her some dinner. So I'm on a deadline as well. Next stage after we've done the firing is drawing the aliens. Let's get some aliens involved. How does that sound? Okay. We're going to stage 6. Up here, draw aliens. So we have a draw grid, draw ship. Let's not contravene our convention. Draw aliens. We're going to have a little draw aliens function then. Let's have it over here, the draw ship, draw grid. I actually quite like it to be after the ship. Okay, draw aliens is a function that's responsible for adding the aliens to the grid, which means we need to store the positions of the aliens in our game state. So let's go back up to the top here. Let's add some state to our application. Alien positions is going to be an array. And where are they going to start? Well, a few things we can do here. Oh, why did that just come up? We can have a starting set of aliens, something like this. I've taken these numbers. I'm actually going to, you can find these numbers as well. You can copy and paste them. You can add any numbers that you want to. These are going to be essentially which cells are they going to take up on your board. I'm saying I want just the middle 9. All right. So not on the 2 left and not on the 2 right, or 3, not on the 3 left, not on the 3 right. So just that middle section. So I'm finding those positions. I'm going to say these are going to be the starting positions. And what am I going to do with that? Well, when I draw the aliens, I'm going to say something like, take my cells, and I'm going to loop through the cells. Each cell has an index. And I'm going to say something like add the class, essentially add the image via the class name to the cell if the index is in the set of alien positions. Okay, so I'm going to loop through my whole grid, go through each one and say, if the current cell, the position of that current cell is in this set here, let's add the class list to it. So let's codify that. If state.alien positions includes current index as we go through each cell of the grid, what are we going to do? We're going to take that cell, take the class list, and add an alien class name, which means I need an alien class name down here. Alien. Copy something like that. And what is it called? Alien.png. Something. Why did that change over here? Give me back my taskbar. Thank you. Where do you go over here? Boom. Now I've got some aliens. So it went through each cell of my grid and say, is this position included in the set of aliens? If so, add the image via the background image. So I've got some aliens on my grid. But at the moment, if I fire, nothing happens. Actually, let's have a look at this. If I click on the element tab, actually zoom out all the way, and actually start firing, you can see the classes get added and removed. You can see how it just travels up the grid. I don't know whether you can actually see that on my screen share, but you can see the classes getting added and removed over here. But you can see they actually go and get added as well as the background image and of the alien and of the laser projectile. So which one's taking priority? Currently the alien, but I actually just want to add some conditions to say, if the alien is hit, please add that other explosion emoji and stop the interval with the laser. All right. So I actually want to now add the ability to hit some aliens. What's that going to look like? Step one is add the alien. I'm going to go to my fire method up here. In the fire method, I'm going to add some code to say, if we stop, we are going to add another condition here to say, if there's an alien, when I fire the laser, please go boom. What does that mean? Clear the interval like we did up here on the line at 86. Then we're going to remove the alien image. Then we're going to remove the alien from the alien positions. And then we're going to set a timeout, or first of all, add the boom emoji. I'm not sure why I'm calling it the boom emoji, but fine. Add the boom image. And then set a timeout to remove the boom image. Those are the steps that we need. So if some condition, if there's an alien, so if state.alien positions includes that laser position, essentially is the laser currently at one of the positions of the aliens? If so, we're going to clear the interval. We're going to remove the alien image. State.cells currently of the laser position. Class list, remove alien and the laser, remove both. And we're going to add the boom, which is going to be some kind of hit. I think I've called it hit before. So we have the class hit, where the hit is going to be that boom emoji. Yep, that was one of my sound effects. Background image, images. What's it called? Explosion. So we're going to stop the laser from traveling upwards. We're going to remove the alien laser images. We're going to add that boom emoji. We're then going to set a timeout to say something like, please remove the explosion emoji. Ooh. Remove hit after, remove it after a certain amount of time. Let's say, for example, 200 milliseconds. I think I might run this to see what breaks in my code. I think that might be okay. I think I haven't done one part, which is remove the alien from the alien positions. Let's do that first. Okay. State alien positions. We're going to remove it. How do I remove it from here? We'll do something like splice to be able to remove at a certain place. I need to find what point this is at. Something like this. I think we take the positions, we find the index of the current laser position, and take that first element. Okay, I'm not going to explain too much about that. Splice works where we can insert or remove. Here I'm going to remove an element, say from this position in the array. I've got to find it. Where is the laser position? And then remove one element of it. So, because I always want to make sure this reduces in the number of positions until we get no aliens left, all right? Okay, let's run it. Too long without it. So fire, I get frozen lasers. So we're gonna have to, like, oh, look at that. I can actually remove my own lasers at the moment. Okay, so clearly I've done something slightly wrong here. I need to, what do I need to do? Add the hit, remove the hit. I'm removing the alien at the moment. Oh, I know what I need to do. I'm going to not do this part here. I think line 104 is still running at the moment. Add the laser image at the end. So rather than get through this if statement and then also then add it again, I'm just simply say, please stop after you get down to the end. Just return. So we're going to not finish this line here. Boom. Yay, now you can have fun killing all your aliens. Sorry, this is all still zoomed out, so let me move that back again. Okay. I'm going to refresh the page. We have a moving spaceship, a firing spaceship, and aliens that can be hit and removed. That's pretty good going. That's pretty good going for an hour and a bit. I'm going to pause here for some questions.
Yeah, we've had a few. Maybe one, just to get one out of the way, a lot of people have been asking if we can share the link to the registration form. I think I've just copied that in the chat for you, Ed. So if you don't mind just pasting that in the chat so that everybody can access it, that would be great, please.
Where have you sent it to me? Oh, you sent it to
on the
Zoom
chat.
in the Zoom chat. Okay, I will just copy that. Oh, what am I doing there? I just clicked on it. That's what.
Everyone's got a little preview of what it looks like.
Oh, look at that Boolean logo. Some free advertising. Okay, I've shared that in the Zoom chat for today's attendance form.
Fantastic. We had another couple of questions.
Yeah.
One from Pfizer Muscan, which was, how does a for each loop work? I don't know if that's something we want to go into.
How does it work? It's a great question. How will I just quickly show you? Maybe I'll just use this. I've just launched a little JavaScript environment here locally on my computer. If I have an array of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I can use a method for each works on arrays. I've just declared this to be an array, literally, using the bracket syntax like this. And I can pass it a callback function to execute for each item in the array. So if I just wanted to multiply it by 2, for example, and log it to my screen, I could say something like, please take each item and console log item multiplied by 2. All right, so it takes a function that you can say, please do this thing for each item, and you can declare how you're going to refer to each item using this variable. So you can give it any name that you want. A, for example, clearly not a good name for a variable. And you just give it a name, and then you can refer to it in the function body over here. That's how for each works. It just goes from the beginning to the end. You aren't able to customize it as much as a for loop, but it's a little bit more readable if you want to execute some code for every item in the array.
Nice. Very helpful. We had a lot of people asking if we can see the puppy yet.
If we get to the end, she's down on the floor at the moment.
Okay, let's not wake the sleeping beast.
Has she been distracting?
No, I think it's just when you mentioned she might need feeding soon. There's a flurry of messages to see the lovely puppy.
When we finish, I'll show.
That's not motivation to stay. I don't know what else is. Someone was asking, I think it was specifically about a problem that they were having, but they introduced it as, how do I debug? And I wondered if it was worth spending a minute talking a bit about the process of effective debugging. What is effective debugging?
It's I think I mentioned this on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember, but it's one of the most important skills you can actually develop in your coding career. If you're a great debugger, you're going to be a great programmer. All right, so it's almost like a cause and effect. If you're great at debugging, you're going to be great. But not all programmers are great at debugging. All right. So if you really want to get better at being a programmer, focus on debugging, because debugging means you are taking a step back. You're trying to get visibility and increasing your tool sets, your skills, and knowing how programs are working. The biggest problem beginners run into is they think something's happening and it's not happening. All right, there's a discrepancy between their assumption and reality, the execution context and the way that they think it's actually being executed. And debugging is trying to get visibility and closing that gap. All right, so knowing what tools are at your disposal. Can you use your developer tools like we're doing on the screen on the right-hand side and understand what's happening, what elements are being affected, what JavaScript is currently doing, what variables are currently in program state, what functions have been declared, just making sure you know as close as possible to what your program is actually doing. So what tools are happening? How do you get visibility? How do you then query, get information? So if you think, how do you then go research and go find information and go apply it? There's a number of skills here to think about in debugging. But I think the first and foremost is seeing every bug as a learning opportunity, a growth moment to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to learn something, right? I'm going to know a little bit more about how my program is working, about how X, Y, Z is. As that mindset is really helpful, because sometimes you can just get stuck and like your fixed mindset stops you from being able to unblock yourself.
Nice. I think there was a related question I got asked halfway through that, which I think you also answered. How would I get better at it? And I think it's simply practice.
Yeah. The only way to learn how to program is to program.
There's one that's been upvoted quite a few times here from Lord Goblin.
Lord Goblin, you've been to most of our sessions, I think. Awesome.
How long would one realistically need to be studying or using JavaScript before they would actually be able to do a project like this off the top of their head? It seems somewhat advanced.
Yeah, great question. The difficulty here is there's two parts to this, really. There's the how are we going to, like, even that original state. I've done a lot of thinking before this to then come up with the approach, all right, and trying to keep it simple, but also demonstrate a few different topics. So that's the first hard part, all right, which is just experience, seeing common problems, knowing how to solve them in common ways, having the grid layout, being able to move things across in the grid, how we're going to do this. So the approach is super important and takes a little bit of experience. Then there's translating the approach into code. All right, it's not too difficult in terms of the functions being used. We're using a couple of JavaScript standard library ones like a set timeout and set interval, but otherwise we're just adding things into an array, removing them, taking some numbers, adding, subtracting them. It's not actually difficult code, right? In theory, in the abstract, we're just minusing numbers, using some if conditions. But it's just the application saying, how do we get from the original requirements all the way through? That's the important part. And being requirements driven is super important in any learning experience, right? To be able to know that you can take some vague requirements and go through the whole development lifecycle, which is essentially called the software development lifecycle that we really focus on here on the course. But in general, that you should be focusing when you learn programming. Take some requirements and struggle, get through that process of breaking it down so you can actually then implement it. And start small, then build it up. But something like this, you should be able to do, I don't know, maybe after 6 months, off the top of your head. Yeah.
Awesome. There's a couple more questions about like how they can build this project out, adding more levels, adding a restart button. I don't know if this is the time for maybe going into those.
Let's not go there. Let's get this finished first, and if we have some time, we can come back to that.
Cool.
There'll be there's opportunities to like speed up the aliens, to have a counter how many levels you get to definitely restart and things like that. Yeah.
And the only other thing, maybe just to close quickly, there have been a few questions about copying and pasting the code. Maybe if we just remind everyone that you shared a link to the code and the different stages we're at. So which stage are we at the moment? That might be helpful for people.
Yeah, we've just finished Aliens Can Be Hit.
Cool. So if you're trying to catch up with us, you can access the code from level 6 or from stage 6. Aliens Can Be Hit, and you should be all up to speed.
It should look fairly similar. It might be slightly different. I'm not sure. It's pretty similar. I've gone through it a few times like this, so it should be fairly similar.
Nice. Yes.
It's probably actually almost identical. Oh, the draw aliens are slightly different. Why did I change it like this? This is not as good. The way I'm doing it currently is better, but it's fine. We'll figure it out. Nice. The way I'm currently doing it is better than that. Cool. All right, let's keep going. We have about 40 minutes, just less, about half an hour. So the last real tricky part, I think, is the moving the aliens. It's not that tricky. It's just we've got to think about how we're going to move the aliens down and some of the rules to say when to move left and when to move right. So currently our game exists like this, where I can move my spaceship and I can fire and the aliens do disappear, which is nice. But we want to be able to actually have the aliens move. So what does that mean? Well, if we go down to the setup game, we've done all the setup. This is part of the play function. All right, we can move the ship and now I need to move the aliens. So I'm going to add some code into my play function. Start the march of the aliens. Okay, so we're going to use another interval like we did with the laser, moving up the page, this time moving down the page. So we'll have some kind of interval. Interval is a set interval, which takes a function. And let's start off at 400. In this function, we're going to then do the movement, all right? What are the rules? We need to do something like have a starting direction. So let's have it up here. Let's direction start off at, we're going to start off moving right. Let's add a comment here, starting direction. If we're going right, we should increase the position by what? If we're going right and we're at the edge, we need to drop down a row, so add 15, increase position by 15, and move left, which is subtract 1, decrease by 1. right, drop down arrow, then it'll also move back. So we're going to go, if it goes to the right, then we're going to go bounce back. If left, we do the inverse. If left, we're moving left, we're going to keep decreasing the position by 1. And if left and at the edge, we're going to increase position by 15, drop down a row, but this time increase by 1, moving right. All right, so those are the rules that we need. And we also then need to redraw the aliens. So then we're going to redraw aliens on the page, which means at the moment we need to take our aliens function and do something here that is remove any alien images. Like we did for the laser, we've got to remove the laser, and then add the laser, we're going to remove the alien images, then add them if there is an alien. We'll come back and do that stage. I think that's kind of what I need to do. So let's codify it. If right, direction is right. Then we have 2 different options. If it's right, let's add another if condition here. Oh, nested ifs. Anyway, let's ignore nested statements. If we're at the edge, I'm going to write a function for this because I'm not going to have it inside this condition. It's a bit complicated probably. If it's at the, if it's going right, we're at the right side, then what are we going to do? Else, we're going to continue moving right. So this is, as a comment for that, if that's one here. Hopefully my comments are making sense. If we're going right, then we need to decide, are we at the edge of the board, or are we still moving right? All right. We need to increase the position. So we're going to calculate the delta, so the difference, the movement here, and then we're going to take all of the positions and update them at one time. So I'm going to add a comment actually to say, before you redraw the aliens on the page, I'm going to update the positions, the alien positions. So it'll look something like this that I want to do. State.alien positions is going to, we're going to assign a new set of values, but to do so, we'll transform the current set. So we'll use the current set of alien positions, and we'll map through them and apply that transformation, map those values to a new value to say all the current positions, please be whatever is the movement. So we're going to calculate what that movement is. We're going left, we're going right, we're going down. What is that movement? In order to get the, and then we're going to redraw the aliens on the page, or something like draw aliens. Update the alien positions, draw the aliens, but we need to calculate the movement. And I'm going to use this if statement here to calculate the movement, and then we can apply it. If direction is right, else, and then we can actually fill out the rest of this, else if direction is left. If it's left, then we have the same kind of thing here. If it's at the left edge, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to just update these comments now and get rid of you. If it's left, decrease the position by 1. We'll keep going left. If we're left at the edge, over here. All right. I'm going to use a movement variable. And we're going to assign it a value in this if condition, and then we can use that movement variable down here in line 143. So notice I've essentially done everything about this function without actually doing any of the calculation, just trying to get my thoughts in order before I fit it out. So going essentially always outside was in, outside in. So I know what the purpose of this function is, what the purpose of my if statement is, to make sure I'm always focused on the right thing. Let us fill this in. So movement is going to be 15 minus 1, right, to represent this. Right, we're going to increase by 15, but decrease by 1, because then we're going to turn left. So we're going to also set the direction to be left. So if we got to the right edge, we're going to drop down a row, move left 1, and then set the direction to be left. So when we get back through this function, we then enter the second part of this if statement. If we keep going right, we're not yet at the right edge. We just simply add 1 to the movement. We'll set it to be 1. Like this. Okay. Then we're going to invert it for the left-hand side. So if we take this, put this here, and say this is now going to be right, but we're going to increase it and then increase by 1, so it'll be +1. And we're going to decrease the position by 1. Movement is -1. So we do the updating of the position on line 147. So we update all the positions at the end after we calculated exactly how they're going to move. Then we redraw the aliens on the page. And the draw aliens, I need to update this. We need to remove any alien images. So let's say something like if the current cell class list contains already an alien. So if it is currently an alien, let's make sure we remove it, remove any aliens, and only refer to the alien positions to know how to draw them. If it contains any aliens, we're going to remove the alien. Okay, in my head, this feels like I've got enough here to debug from any errors that happen. I've got the shape of this interval done. So let's reload the page. And let's have a look at some. Oh yeah, clearly I haven't even done the at edge function. You can see my interval's working. It's just still going. So I need to actually decide how to calculate when we're at the edge. So I'm going to write a new function for this. Const at edge is a function that takes in the side, sure, no, direction. I'll keep it, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. How are we going to decide what to do here? We need something like if the side is on the left, we'll do something, we'll return something. If the side is on the right, how do we calculate it? Or we also return something. That's all we're going to do. So what are we going to return? If we're at the left-hand side, how are we going to calculate this? Well, we need to find out, are any aliens in the left-hand column? Yeah, and we already know how to do this a little bit on the ship, right? It was like some kind of multiple of 15. Where is it? Up here. I'm just going to grab this at the moment just to refer back to it. This one and this one. Oops. Something like that. Other left-hand columns. So we're going to do something like state.alien positions. Is there at least one of them whose position is in that left-hand column, which means is it divisible by 15 and leave no remainder? Is it just 1 or 2? I think it's like that. I think it's all I need to do. So it's going to be something like this as well. For is it equal to 14? I think it's, if it's 14 down here, it should be. Okay, let's remove that. So the comment here will be, are there any aliens in the right-hand column? Okay, let's reload the page. Line 162. Line 162. Well, I need an if, else if. Refresh. Oh, we got something moving. Look at that. Boom, and it moves as we want it to. Down and left. Down and left. Cool. So we've got some, we can still fire. We have some aliens. I think the last thing we need to do is the game should be able to end. So we should be able to add some conditions to make sure that we can lose or win or lose. Let's kill all the aliens. I'm having too much fun, folks. Too much fun, I tell you. I'm going to do some questions in just a little bit. We'll do the next stage first. We'll do another round of questions, then we'll finish it off, all right? Okay. So we're now on to, if we go to here, we've done the aliens can move. We're now gone to the game can end. Stage 8. Stage 8. So on the play function, we draw the aliens. We also need to check the game state. All right. This is going to say, has someone won? Have the aliens won? Have has the player killed all the aliens? So we're going to invoke this function. So we're going to create a new function down here. Hello. Down here. Check game state. Here is going to be responsible for, has the aliens got to the bottom, or has the aliens all dead? That's not grammatically English, but you know what I mean. So let's do that first one. This one is probably the second one is actually easier. How are all the aliens gone? Come on, leave me alone. Sorry, folks. 1 second. Come on. Okay. Are the aliens all dead? Simple enough condition here. Once we remove all the aliens, there will be no aliens in the array. All right, a length of 0 for the number of items in this array. So the condition here is if state.alien positions length is equal to 0. And if this happens, we need to essentially stop everything, right? So what does that mean? Stop the aliens from moving. No. Yes. We need to stop the interval. The aliens will clearly will no aliens left. We need to stop the interval. How do we stop the interval? The interval for the aliens is up here. Let's pass this interval into the game state. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. We'll stop the interval. So clear interval. What else do we need to do? If there are no more, I guess we just let's just not do anything just yet. Probably we'll go on to the next condition. If there are no more aliens, we'll stop that interval. Else, if we'll clearly need to stop the interval again. What's this condition? Probably the easiest one to do at the moment is we could figure out the bottom row, but let's do a shortcut. Let's just do if they get to the bottom row, but after maybe the position is just after the ship. It's on the right hand side of the ship. That's probably the easiest one to do at the moment. We could be a little bit more specific in calculating what that last set of indexes are. We could hard code it. I'm not going to hard code it for now. Okay. Okay. If the state.alien positions is if at least one of them has a position that is greater than or equal to the current ship position. Yes, that's what I mean. So if any of the aliens as they come down are essentially on the bottom row, but to the right of it at the moment, I could probably figure out a quick way to do this or a different way to do it. Let's leave it at the moment. Then we'll stop the aliens. Not just stop the aliens, we'll explode the ship, make ship go boom. So we need to remove the ship image, add the explosion image. State cells ship state dot ship position class list remove spaceship add hit. Probably enough for now. In order to test this, let's actually, rather than have all the aliens right at the very top, let's start off an alien at the very bottom so we can quickly test this. We start off here. If an alien gets to the bottom part, the ship explodes, the aliens stop moving. If I can still fire. I want to disable the ship as well, actually, don't I? I want to disable the ship. I'm going to disable the ship by setting stop everything. So maybe let's use a bit of game state. Game over is true. We'll start off with game over is false. And then we add a condition on the controls. Where's my controls? Ship controls, where are you? Up here. Let's disable this. If state dot game over, if we're at that state, let's just simply return. So we won't hit any of this code. So we'll disable it entirely. So I now can't move my ship, which is good because you shouldn't be able to after you won. Okay, so we can stop the game after the no more aliens and my ship explodes. Oh, I can actually still move my ship afterwards, which means I should disable it as well. So let's add you after this. So if that dies, boom, and I can't move anything. Cool. Okay, so we can end the game. I also want to draw a message so we can see the win or the loss. So I'm going to add one more bit here. I want to draw a message, which is something like, if we win is human wins, or the human loses, game over. You should be there. Which means I need to write this function, draw message. Const draw message is some text. It's a function that is going to do a few things. Create a message, append it to the app. So we'll do something like state element dot append message element, create a message, const message element is document create element, some kind of div. I'm going to style it, so I need message element class list add message. Let's add an H1 heading. So to add some text to it, document create element H1, add some text. What's the text going to be? That's where we take it from the argument message up here. Comes down to there. Too many S's. There we are. We're going to append the message element, append the H1, and then we append the message element to the app element, something like this. You go over there, create heading text. So I need to add some styles down here, and we'll do it probably over here. Message, I need you to show up on the page over the top of this grid. The grid is 600 by 600. So I'm going to do something like, please overlay on top. So it's set position to be position absolute. The zoom overlay is now in my way. Okay, let's start off at the top. Let's be, I don't know, roughly 200 pixels. We know the left's going to be about 200 pixels. I might change this, but it should be around that. Anyway, top left, 200 pixels. Let's say stretch across, again, 200 pixels. A third of it is 200 by 200 by 200. Start from 200 to the left, total width of 200, and height 100 pixels, I think is what I did before. Let's set the background color to be, oh, that's English, that's American, white, and the opacity to be slightly off. Let's set the text, the H1 heading, here that I'm appending it to be, I want it to be color blue. I want it to be in the center, text align center, and I want the line height to be, how high is it? 100 pixels. Oh, no, I want it to be half the size, don't I? Line height. Half the size of the message, so it appears on 2 lines. Let's see what happens. Refresh the page. Let's see what happens when we die. Boom, game over. If I hit it, human wins. Cool. If you double check that you've got the link up here at the top of your file here on index.html, this is the way that we are using Google Fonts it's an external style sheet. It grabs the font from an external source, so then we can use it in the application. And so make sure that's in your HTML at the top, and then you can use it. Yeah, it should already be part of your starting point on line 5 in your CSS, the font family for that retro font. We're pretty much done. We can go back to, I'm going to find all those old aliens positions. We're going to go replay them from here. Going to refresh the page, and we have some moving aliens, and the game could end if I allow it to. If I kill all the aliens, they will take a little while because I'm not very good at this game. There we are. Boom, human wins, and I can't move my ship. So that's pretty much it, folks. We can add a little bit more into adding the scoreboard. Maybe I'll do the score. We've got about 10 minutes, so I'll do the score. But maybe I'll do some questions first. Patrick, are you still around?
I am.
Hello. Let's do some questions.
Sure, we have had a few. I think maybe first one to start with, there was Chris, I'm now lost, and also one from Baptiste, who's having some issues displaying images in Code Sandbox. I think probably easier to do in Atom. I think it's a bit harder to upload the images in Code Sandbox. But generally, maybe just going back to what we were saying about, following this along live is always going to be slightly tricky. But please rewatch the recordings tomorrow or over the weekend or next week. Take your time with it. Hopefully, if you slow it down, watch it in half speed on YouTube, then all of this will kind of click into place. So just another reminder of that for everybody as well. Another question was about different languages. So there was one, where was it?
The quick answer, by the way, if you don't want to store things in CoSandbox images, is just take the absolute path to the resource that we have. Like you can see here, go to Space and Data, is just copy the actual image location, copy link address. You don't need to save it locally and add it if you're using CoSandbox, and you can just use the value here like that. Right.
Okay, perfect. There you go. Even answered there as well. Hope that helps, Baptiste. Yeah, there's one from an unknown Zoom user. If there's any other coding language we could use to build these projects, or is it only possible with JavaScript? And maybe related to this, outside of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, what are other key languages that someone might want to learn if they were going to start a career in tech?
Fantastic question. Okay, so given that we're working in the browser, you can only use JavaScript. All right, so you make sure you remember that. When you're working in the browser comes with a runtime environment for a programming language, but the only programming language it can run is JavaScript. Side note, WebAssembly, we're getting there, an entirely different conversation we can have later. So if you're working in the browser, JavaScript is your only language, programming language you can use. All right, you can write this program and run it not in the browser in any language that you want. But you then not be able to have access to the events, the browser events, like the click event or the set timeout functions, the intervals, things like that. You would find a different way to do that, right? You would access your operating system clock to be able to use some kind of, or through your standard library to find some way to space an interval. And then draw things out in a separate output, whether it's in a file or other kind of display. So there are things you can do to play this game, but not in the browser, and on which you'll be able to use any language that you choose to do so. Did that answer the question, Patrick?
Yeah, I think maybe if the second one, which is about, good languages maybe to learn if you're looking to kind of expand your repertoire, if you've got any ideas around that.
So it really depends on your goals. Whenever I ask this question, you got to think about, what do you want? Do you want to work as a front-end software developer? Do you want to work as a back-end software developer? Do you want to work more in data? Do you want to work more in mobile apps? Do you want to work more in legacy software? These are all things to think about because they inform the kinds of languages and the kinds of communities that you'll be involved with. So, for example, the data community is really huge about Python and R. Web browsing is always about JavaScript. Mobile apps, you'll be using things like any kind of Android development kits and using any derivative of Java that Google has come up with these days. What other communities exist? If you want to go into some legacy code bases, they use older technologies, Java versions. You'll be using any kind of C versions. That's something to keep in mind when you think about what kind of languages, what kind of communities and goals do you want to aim for. If you just want to enjoy the learning experience, you can choose some easy to learn languages that are usually more readable, like Python, like JavaScript, like Ruby. You can try to prioritize learning some statically typed languages. So there's a few different options there for you to think about. We use JavaScript in the course because it's hugely popular, very employable for front-end and back-end developers, and it's a fun programming language, and it has a superset of a language called TypeScript that adds a little bit more constraints on how we can write it.
Nice. Hopefully that also answered a couple of other questions that came in whilst we're talking specifically about different, quite focused on different specific languages. So I think that hopefully covers a few more of those as well. I really like this one. There's a few people that's been asking specifically about the code of today. So you mentioned that you'd done one of your functions differently compared to the code on the other one that's shared on the link. Are we going to be sharing today's code, and is there a reason why you think the stuff you did today was better?
So I think I've demonstrated this function declaration rather than just using an arrow function. In general, the idea is if you need to declare a function, absolutely do so. Or you can use arrow functions, doesn't really matter, just keep the convention unless you have a particular reason. There's a few reasons why function declarations are useful. You can declare them and then execute code even before they're declared because of function hoisting. There's a few things like that happen. But in general, keep it conventional. So I should probably convert us back to the arrow syntax. I'm kind of writing exactly the same code, so it doesn't really matter. I think I changed all the implementation because I knew ahead of time what needed to happen. It was like something like the draw aliens function. I wrote it in a slightly different way because I knew I needed to change it later. The end result in the code here is pretty exemplary for this kind of demo project.
Amazing, amazing. There's also one that was asked a little while ago from Laura here, which I liked. How do you typically start planning a project? And I like this because I think a lot of the time coding feels like writing the code itself, you know, and you know, deciding what functions to use and all this kind of stuff. But it feels like a large part of it is the process at the start. And I think a lot of the commenting that you're doing, explaining what you were going to do step by step, that feels like a really large part of it. So maybe talking a bit about how you go about doing that.
Yeah, it's such a great question, and it's key. I'm really glad and I'm really happy you picked up on it. And part of it just comes from the experience of having seen lots of problems. When you see lots of problems, you start to be able to categorize them in not just problems, but also the kinds of solutions that they have. And then you know the kinds of things you need to do whenever you encounter that problem again. And the only way you build up that knowledge is by seeing a lot of problems, right? Lots of requirements, lots of things to be able to then build that up. But you can train this ability as well by forcing yourself to always think in stages in a development process. Whenever you have a requirement or a problem, you first think about understanding it, diagramming it, writing it out, trying to pick out the important information, drawing diagrams to represent it, some kind of representation of the requirements that you can start to work with. Then you can start to maybe pick out some function names, some class names, some variable names that you might be using. And you can start to think about how you're going to get from the input to the output. What transformation do you need? What kinds of aggregation? What kinds of mutation do you need to go from the requirement to the end result? And then you also think about how you're going to test that you know you've done. Is it just by checking the app? Is it by running the app? Is it by writing some tests for it? And then only then do you get to actually writing code for it. So this development process is something that you can try and explicitly set yourself to think about explicitly. What stage am I in when I'm writing some code or implementing some code, and think about those stages and then get better and faster at it. So a great question.
Nice. Someone's asked if they can see your play function definition. So maybe you could leave the screen on there whilst they're answering the next question, which I like this one from Chris. What's the best way to start getting involved with the community? I find I'm lost when I go looking and feel like I wouldn't be able to contribute.
Yeah, I agree. It can be really daunting sometimes. I would see, first of all, what interests you have. Are you someone who really likes, I don't know, I had Nico yesterday talking about the healthcare system. Are there any like healthcare programming communities to start getting involved in? That might be GitHub repositories, that might be forums, might be subreddits, or it might be some whatever it is that you can start to get involved in. Sometimes the entry point is programming communities on Hacker News or on Reddit or other kinds of social media, and to start seeing some of the things that people are talking about and commenting, and just starting the introduction that way. And start in a big group and start to see what niches there are and think about what you like. There can be specific communities for different things. That's probably the main way that I would suggest to start getting a look. And then finding on GitHub or some repositories of code and reading through it and maybe trying to find some easy access open source features or bugs or things like that you can start to play around with. It's a really tough question, and I wish I could spend more time thinking or actually chatting to you about it. So I think that's all I'm going to say for the moment. But it's a really great question.
And maybe just add to that a shout out to Code Bar, which is a really great community for people who are looking to get into coding.
Yeah, good shout, Patrick.
They try and bring people together who are early in their journey and try and kind of pair them up and mentor them with people in the industry as well. So it's not for absolute beginners. Like, you need to know some basic coding, but that's a great one to go along to. I think they've got an event actually coming up in September. Codebar, codebar.io, I think it's their website. Check them out for sure. There's quite a lot of questions about what would be, how to build this out, kind of version 2, for example, with a restart button is one of the big ones. And the other one that I keep seeing is if you want to use different keys like A or D instead of left or right. There's a few different options here. I don't know if we have time to go into this right now, Ed, but I wonder if this is maybe an invitation and also an opportunity to thank so many of you have been jumping in on the comments. You've been incredible, a real huge help, giving great advice, sharing great tips for everybody. So maybe this is something on the Discord server. I know some of you shared your code and shared your kind of adapted projects as well from Tic-Tac-Toe. And maybe this is something we'd love to see. I've been interrupted by a lovely dog.
Sorry.
I can't have the limelight. I can't hog the limelight now. I think she's got to say hello, hasn't she?
She's waiting for her dinner. That's actually remarkably well timed. It's exactly 7 p.m.
I know, bang on the dot. Is there anything left from your side, Ed?
I might want to just spend 2 minutes copy pasting some code just so we can actually technically finish this with a scoreboard area in the instructions. So if you want to hang on 2 more minutes, I can just quickly do that just for completeness sake.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and then we can wrap up. All right. So maybe before we do that, should we do the wrap up now, and then I'll just quickly do the last couple of minutes, and then we can go.
Yeah, sure thing. I reckon we'll be fine, except we're gonna have to stop the screen share and change the screen share, so feel free to carry on.
Okay. Yeah, she's all right. She's all right. She's pacing around as if she wants her dinner. Okay, let's finish this off. The other thing to do to make sure that we've done here is to show the score area with the instructions, and then making sure that we can increment a score when we attack the aliens. So the couple of things that we need to do here. Come on, sit. Good girl. Wait. Is to we're going to draw the scoreboard. I'm going to copy and paste a chunk of this from the code from here. We go to the game can end. Oh no, we need one more. Why show me all? Where's number 9? Scoreboard. This one here. So I'm going to whack this here. I'll run through it quickly about what it's doing. This draw scoreboard is add the instructions here. I'm going to invoke this function in the setup game. So I'll add it when I set up the game. What does it do? It's going to create the instructions. It's going to create a heading element, add the text, create the paragraph, add the text, create another paragraph, add the text. And then we're going to add the scoreboard area where we're going to keep in state score, which means I'm going to add the score here. We're going to start off with 0. We're going to add that to the element. We're going to create the H3 element and then add everything at the end. In order to add this scoreboard, if I refresh the page now, it just appears at the end here. It's not where I want it. I want it on the right-hand side here. So in order to do this properly, I'm going to actually convert the app element itself, which contains this grid and the scoreboard, to be displayed as 2 columns rather than just down the page. So here we're going to add another grid display, and I probably can just copy and paste this here to save some time. Up here. If I go back and refresh the page, it now puts it on in the right-hand side. I need to add a few things to make it white and all the right things. So I'm just going to copy these two rules here for the scoreboard and add them to my code here at the bottom. And then I'm going to refresh this page. And I have Space Invaders. And if I shoot, I need to add, it's not incrementing yet because I need to go to my fire. Where is my fire function? Here. When I fire and I hit the aliens, I'm going to add the hit and I'm going to take the score. I can just take the score element. I added it into state, didn't I? Score element, yeah. Where's my fire? Where's my fire? Here. Score element, update the inner text with the score, but beforehand I need to increment it. State score increase by 1. Refresh. If I play now, I have an incrementing score. Cool. So that was just the last step to do to be able to make sure I have an incrementing score, so we can see how many aliens I've successfully shot down. And maybe I tried to spend far too much time thinking about what I could draw using the alien positions. I don't have enough space here, but I thought we would have Boolean UK in terms of the aliens up here. So this is how we're going to end this, Patrick. And we can shoot Boolean UK. Cool.
Lovely stuff.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, hand it back to you, Patrick.
Wicked. I've only got very quickly to wrap up is just a reminder of our course dates. If you are, if this has inspired you and you're thinking about taking this further and maybe starting a career in coding or indeed in data analytics, which uses Python and some elements of coding too. We do have courses starting on the 5th of September, software development, front-end development, and on the 19th, part-time data analytics. There is that 15% discount. That's if you apply before 12 p.m. on Tuesday, 16th of August. An application is just filling in the form, not just a little form on the website, but that'll take you to a slightly longer form. Completing that slightly longer form is at the start of your application, and as long as you mention that you you came through Coding Week in there, we'll be able to apply that discount as long as it's before 12. We receive that part of the application before 12 p.m. It's a non-committal as well. If you decide further down the line, maybe after the interview, that it's not for you, that's absolutely fine. But please come along to an interview. We'd love to chat to you and understand if this could be right for you. That's that. I know many people have been asking. There's also a lovely QR code here as well if you want to take a quick picture. This is for the final attendance form and to register for your certificate. So snap that. The link's also been shared in the chat. We'll drop it on the Discord community as well. So you can access that. It's valid for 24 hours and we'll check eligibility, and for all those who are eligible, you'll receive your certificate within 48 hours. Nothing else to say really, other than a huge thank you to Ed and Nathan, first of all, for some exceptional work this week. I really appreciate you taking time out of your days to give up your evenings as well to help inspire people in coding. So thank you so much, and thank you, Nathan, in his absence. Huge thank you to everyone who stuck around till 7 o'clock on a Friday. That's super lovely. We feel really honored, really blessed. It was so nice. We were overwhelmed with how many people joined, and it's just so lovely to see that this is something that many people are considering, many people are interested in. So thank you, really appreciate it. All your great questions. Shout out to everybody who is jumping in with the questions, also on Discord as well. You've been amazing. We're really excited to hopefully have some of you applying for the full-time courses, and hopefully we'll see you, if not on one of those, then at the next time we run a Coding Week.
Awesome, I agree. Second all of that. I'm not going to add anything more because Patrick, you said it in a nutshell. It was a huge pleasure to spend the evenings with you, Patrick, in particular. No, I'm joking, but with everyone here and coding along. I'm on GitHub, I'm on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, please continue to ask. I'll be on the Discord community server every now and again, and all the code's available for free, so please use it as much as you like.
Lovely stuff. Have a great rest of your evening. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. and a shout out from the pup. That's a little Easter egg for everybody who's stuck to the end.
She's like, give me my food. All right, bye-bye.